Welcome to Just an Average Citizen, the podcast that helps to educate, inform, and empower you to make an impact in Abilene and the Big Country. So here we go, another week with the podcast because there's something you need to know about. So thank you for joining me. It would really help if you could get the word out about this podcast by subscribing and sharing this with your family and friends. It is hard to get a municipal podcast out to the people so that they can have at least a source of information that tells them what's going on. Because while I'm not sure that's necessarily the city's job, they're not doing it for whatever reason. And so we have to work together as citizens to make sure we are educated and informed so that we can know where we need to strategically make decisions to improve our community. So I just wanted to let you know that I thought about not doing the podcast this week because there's not a lot of things going on necessarily until I looked at the calendar and was reminded there's a pretty big event going on. So I always check the calendar, make a plan of what I can do. And one of the things that I noticed, and I mentioned probably back in June, maybe even May, I can't even remember the last meeting was held, but was the street maintenance advisory board. So this meets twice a year. So you have two chances to have some input in what goes on in our funds that we have for the street maintenance. You know that the city started a street maintenance fee in 2018 and they collect about $10 million. I think, the numbers change. I get sometimes the numbers of how much they spend confused with how much money the city actually takes in, but I believe it takes in about $10 million. So I've been doing a little research and have learned that we actually took out a bond. It was a general obligation bond in 2015. It was a really large one. $45 million of that went to work on street repairs. And then in 2018, it was realized that we would need some extra help because the streets have basically been neglected for about 30 years prior to 2015. And so they put an election where the street maintenance fee was put on the ballot for May. And I believe there was less than 10,000 that showed up to vote. And so it was about 54% agreed to the street maintenance fee. And so we know that there has been some money being used to work on repairs because I think this year there's over $65 million worth of street repairs that need to be done at different levels. There's 3 levels. There's like just the surface. There's a little bit of an in-depth repair, and then there's just basically start over from scratch. And so what I found interesting and why I'm making a podcast, just so you will know that if you don't show up, you don't get to have a say in what happens. And this is a meeting where you can make an impact. So the community from Lytle, it wasn't Lytle exactly, it's over there by Shotwell, one of the neighborhoods. They said, hey, we want our streets fixed. And the board was like, hey, look, you showed up, so we'll fix your streets. So I wanted to let you look and see that, and I do this all the time. I show you where to go. So you come in here, go to government, agendas and minutes, and it's Thursday night. And they've actually done something kind of weird with the agenda of the agendas. Yeah. So normally they have it here instead of one-time event. So see, so I don't know what happened when it got entered. Something got goofy. It happens. Let's see here. Here it is. Street Maintenance Advisory and Appeals Board. Okay, so there it is. You get your meeting files. There's the agenda. You want to click on the agenda packet because there's more things than if you just click on these little handy tabs right here. You can see some of the information, but I don't think it has all the information from what I found. So I just go to the agenda packet. It's only let's see, it's how many pages? It's 18 pages. It's not very long. So basically they do have the minutes. So if you weren't, which most of you weren't at the last minute, you can read the last meeting, you can read the minutes and see what happened, or you can even watch it on the communications. I can show you how to do that real quick. You can come here. If you go to communications, they have the Abilene Television Network, live archive videos. You want to come down here to the boards and commissions tab. And then it was in June 20th. So yeah, and then you click on here and looky there. There's the video. and it tells you what the conversation is. So it's about 43 minutes. I watch it on double speed so I can get through it faster. There's probably a lot of it you can't hear because they were not talking in there. So you see all these people, there's about 16 people from one neighborhood. So their streets were put in queue to be fixed. So we've got to show up to tell them, hey, we want our streets fixed. So what I like to show you, there's the minutes. So they have the slides that they'll show at the meeting as well. Max Johnson will be reporting on it. He'll give an update on the street projects, the street maintenance program. So it's confusing because we have street maintenance funds. We have a street project fund. No, we have a street maintenance project fund. No, we have street maintenance fund, a street project fund. We have street maintenance fees. It's all confusing. And so I'm going to remind y'all, did you know that when you pass the street maintenance fee, you said, hey, city, here's you the money. You can take a fee and you can spend it on whatever you want to fix the roads. It's not just new roads. It's not just the old roads. It's not the roads that are not working well. They can spend it on whatever they want to keep the streets. So I wasn't actually here in Abilene to vote on it, so I didn't read the ordinance, nor probably in 2018 would I have read the ordinance. But you can read the ordinance. Let me show you this real quick. Sorry, I just want you to be able to see. That's not what I meant to do. You just come to their website, and if you go to departments and come to the city secretary, and just go to the city secretary page, and then you scroll down here. There's a city secretary. Oh, I missed it. Come to city ordinances, and then if you come down here and look close to 2018 ordinances, and we know it passed in May, so we'll come look here. Okay, if you come down here to, I just had 625, because that's when it was voted in, establishing a street maintenance fee. So the condition and the maintenance, I encourage you to read this because everyone should read an ordinance because they're not that hard to read. You just have to read them and get through them. The condition and maintenance of the city streets has been a major topic of concern among the residents of Abilene because we know they've been neglected. As of 2015, at least 2015, they were neglected for 30 years. So on September 8th, 2016, they authorized a third-party pavement management study fee to be completed. Let's see here. The city was briefed on the concept of the street maintenance fee in 2016. And then on March 23rd of 2017, it was presented to council and they found moving forward necessary funding to maintain city street system at good pavement condition index would be $10 million annually. So during the June 20th meeting in 2017, they discussed the street maintenance fee. Throughout the summer, they engaged with public and business stakeholders. That's the business stakeholders are the businesses, but the public stakeholders are you, with the concept of the fee. And then the city incorporated those items of discussion into a street maintenance fee program. The city further discussed the concept of the street maintenance fee program in August 3rd, 2017 meeting. And then they will charge a street user fee for residential commercial business owners within the city limits in order to charge for their proportional use of the city's transportation system, and collect fees will be deposited in an annual fund to be used exclusively to maintain the city streets. Okay, so that means they can do whatever they want to with this fee, include, like they just did this year, put in a new light, a street light fixture, or a street light installation, whatever, at Antlian Memorial for $500,000. Okay, so the Advisory and Appeals Board is created to monitor the implementation and success of the fee program. The fee will be part of an overall approach to maintain the streets. And so there we go. So now we know that we signed away and said, okay, y'all have free access to this money to do however you want to, as long as it's is with the streets. Now, I'm not saying they're like being terrible with it, but I'm just saying I didn't realize that when this was passed, it was for all streets. I thought it was mainly supposed to focus on repairing the streets that have been neglected for 30 years. But anyway, that's okay. All right, so you can watch the video. I showed you how to find that. Oops, I just closed the one page I actually needed. All right, so I just wanted to let you see what's going on here at this meeting so you can know and tell your neighbors. Say, come, show up. I really just wanted to let you see. Oh, I need to leave that out because I'm about to scroll down and it's going to be wide. All right, so they show all the streets work from 2017 to 2024 categorized by funding and year. So the problem is with this is, look, I can zoom in all I want. Let's see if it might work. Sometimes it doesn't work. But they give you this great information, and I'm doing this to just prove you can't really see it unless you do this. So let's see if it worked. Oh, look, it worked. Okay, so this is an actual file, so you can zoom in and see where they spent the money, and this is going to be helpful to pay attention to. All right, so this is up to the present, what they've done since 2017. So this involves all their, when they started the study for this is what's happened. Then the projects recommended that were not voted on from the June 2024 meeting. So the ones that they recommend to work on is Lateral Estates, which had their entire neighborhood show up, C.W. Gill, the linear repair, which is, I don't think that's the full depth. That's what it's called, full depth. Or is that just a surface? I think that's a surface maybe. Rebecca Lane, Cat Claw to Buffalo Gap, South 14th, Willis to Sales, North 18th, Willis to Mockingbird. And so then they have a lot of, so I will be honest. Okay, this is where they talked about the 3 different levels of the projects. These are the streets that need to be fixed. These are the projects they're recommending. So you can see if your neighborhood or your street is in there, show up. I'll be there. And share a comment to make sure you get your say and say, listen, I want to have drivable streets or whatever. I mean, just saying this is a time where you can really show up. And I don't tell you to show up very often, but this is a meeting where you can make a difference. If there's a street on this one, it's page 14. Then you need to show up and talk about it. And then they tell our next meeting date is June 5th of 2025, or they're going to pick between 2 dates in June of 2025. Okay. So show up, you can make a difference. This has impact. This will change how they spend the money because they need to hear from us, and they're not going to tell us to show up. So I'm telling you to show up. I mean, they're going to tell us to show up, but not in the places people are looking. So one of the things I just want is people in neighborhoods who care. If they don't know about this meeting, they can't show up. All right. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was this conversation that I've seen come up very often. We live in a town of a lot of people who understand what it means to be a Christian. We are not necessarily all Christians. We don't all go to church, but we understand that our community is overall a Christian community. And one of the things that I see getting used time after time is this word that we can't be political, especially as Christians. You're not supposed to be political. You're just supposed to, be neutral and not challenge people and just kind of go along to get along, because that is better for Christians to be friends with more people than it is to be influential. And so I don't know, it just really it didn't sit well with me this week. A friend was just talking about talking about education. She wanted to talk about education with some friends, and they're like, we're not going to be political. And I'm like, when did taking care of school become a political thing? I mean, we have gotten out of control. So I just want to encourage you to know that when they say don't be political, it's something they want you to do, but it's not something that they do themselves. Because if you look on our city council, we have at least 2 elders from churches on the city council. Every single one of them say they go to church. They're all part of a community that is of believers. So they're all Christians sitting on the council. So the problem is those councilmen don't necessarily always bring their faith to how they make decisions. And that's part of what we're sitting at. We have people who are willing to go to the end of the earth for people who do not need or do not want things that reflect Christ's standards of living, but they are okay with saying, no, we can't influence people with our Christian faith. So what I'm saying is we can't do that anymore. Okay, we can't do that. We have we have lots of things that need help, and we're not doing well in a lot of areas. And part of it is because we as Christians are not involved in this process. We're not discussing things politically. We're not taking stands for things in our city. But the problem is I have enough conversations with people that I'm saying we all are wanting things to change, but everyone's looking for someone else to make that change. And it just can't happen until you decide to do it. Okay. I'm not telling your neighbor to do it. I'm telling you, if you're listening to this podcast, you start saying, hey, this would be a good idea. Hey, I think this would work really well. You bring suggestions to make sure that people know that there's an option. There's something we can choose to do. And so for example, I want these people to show up to make sure their streets get put to the top of the queue. I want people to have their needs met through this one small act of being a part of the street advisory and street maintenance advisory and council board. I can't even remember the name of this right now. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. My brain just went dead on it. the Street Maintenance Advisory and Appeals Board agenda or boards, right? I want people to show up. And there's times where you can have input and say, hey, my streets are really bad. I mean, this neighborhood that came and got theirs moved to the top, they're like, we can't even push strollers down our streets. Again, I don't know if that's a standard that we need to measure what streets can be used as, but it mattered to the Street Maintenance Advisory and Appeals Board, and they moved it to the top so we can make a difference. So when people tell you, I don't want to be political, then just say that's okay. We're not being political. We're just trying to make sure our city runs as best as it can. And that involves me and you giving our input, having influence, and saying this is what we want. Because see, the city council and the mayor reflect what we want. And when we tell them what we want, they do stuff like when we said don't raise taxes, they didn't, except for pretty much what we voted on them and gave them permission to raise taxes. So they respond to what we want. They respond to what we ask from them when we ask. But we've got to start doing that. And the only way you can do that is by being this word political. So let's stop being political and let's start yielding our influence in the city to make sure that we are giving options for them to move forward in ways that reflect us. And I was a part of something just recently where many people, before I was a part of this, I would have said, here's how the city thinks, here's how the city feels, and I'm frustrated about it. And so then I did this particular activity and I realized, no, that's not it. The city actually is united in more ways than has ever been communicated or that I've ever seen. And it was really exciting to me to know that there's something the city is unified and they want to get behind, but we just need to know that other people are there. And the only way we can do that is by saying, hey, this is what I think. So let's not be political. Let's just start giving our opinions. Let's just start talking about things. Let's just start engaging with people and say, hey, I noticed they're doing a lot of construction on the streets. I like it. Or, hey, I noticed they're still not getting the streets that need it the most. I don't like it. Or, hey, I noticed this business closed. I wonder if it had anything to do with the fact that half the year or for the entire year, the street was been worked on with construction. Did that have any impact? Or was it just that the owners decided to close the business? We just have to have conversations. Hey, I noticed that there's a lot of policemen giving high fives to kids coming to school. That's really cool. Let's have conversations. Let's talk about what matters. I'm really grateful that our city puts public safety at its number one priority above everything else, because if we don't have safety in our city, we cannot thrive in other capacities. That is the number one need, not infill development, which sadly is what our mayor is putting as his priority, is infill development. And I wish public safety was at the front, and I haven't seen that shift, but I have seen him do what he told us we were going to do. So let's make sure we let them know what we want. Do we want more infill development? Do we want people to focus on the places that are not doing well? Or do we want to shore up the businesses that are struggling because of inflation and lower commercial spending because everyone's having to tighten their belts because it is just really rough out there financially? And we're all struggling. The cost of groceries, the cost of gas, the cost of living, everything is hard. So should we be focusing on infill development? I mean, I know infill development could possibly raise property taxes, which gives the city more money, but how is that helping us right now as citizens? Is infill the development? We need public safety. We need to know that our kids are going to be safe when they go to school. We need to know that when we're walking our dogs or we're riding our bikes in our neighborhoods, we don't have to worry about things happening, because our world is really emotionally charged in so many different areas. We've got to make sure that we do a better job of communicating what we want, and that's sharing our opinion. Now, we don't have to say our opinion is right, but we do have to say, hey, this is what I think would be a good idea, or hey, I like this, or hey, I don't like this. It's okay to share that. That's not being political. And I think I've beaten that horse as much as I'm going to, but I just want you to know that we don't need to police ourselves. That is what soft totalitarianism is, where they say, hey, don't be political. And then you don't want to talk about education. You don't want to talk about making sure we have good curriculum in our schools that are struggling. That's policing ourselves. We shouldn't do that. We should say, you know what? It's okay. I want kids to have a good education. I've drug on this longer than I wanted to, but I really think we've got to start having these conversations. Don't be political anymore. Just share your opinion. Okay. So make sure that you get this podcast out to people so they can know what's going on, so they'll know more about the Street Maintenance Advisory Board and Appeals, so that we can make sure that our money's getting spent the way we want to and not on $1 million dog park. Still haven't found the crowd that was supportive of that. Looking into it, but I haven't found it yet. We want our streets fixed. We want our policemen to be paid well so that we can have safety. We want an environment that allows businesses to thrive. and we need to make sure we're sharing our opinion. So don't be political, just share your opinion, and make sure you share this podcast to get it out. Like I started to say, subscribe and share this with your family and friends. That would be very helpful so that we can make sure more people know about what's going on, and we can have more discussions, because I think the more we talk about things, the more we're going to find solutions that will bring about the desired results that we want for our community. And so don't worry. Sharing your opinion is fun. It's hard, and it can get some responses that you don't like, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. And then the more we start having conversations again, like we did way back when, right? So I hope this has been enlightening. I hope you've learned a little bit so that you can be educated, informed, and empowered to make an impact in Abilene and the Big Country. Until next time.